Alright, Cowboys Nation, let's get into this mess because there is no other way to describe it. The Dallas Cowboys somehow managed to turn what could have been a position of power into one of the most frustrating and confusing situations we have seen in years. Fans are drained. The front office looks like it tripped over itself, and instead of setting this team up for success, they let ego and bad timing run the show. Nobody's happy right now. And honestly, how could you be? The handling of this whole situation with Micah Parsons is a disaster class. Plain and simple. It did not have to be like this. The numbers being thrown around, the deal that landed at $47 million, none of that was inevitable. The Cowboys had chances, plenty of them, to negotiate smarter, to talk with the agent to at least keep leverage on their side. But once again, the Jones family let things spiral. Steve and Jones kept insisting on this so-called April timeline. But let's be real, everything was already moving back in March. Even then, April was wide open to execute a trade, and they just stood still. They waited, hesitated, and by the time they pulled the trigger, they had lost every ounce of bargaining power. You don't wait until the week before the season kicks off to make a franchise-altering move like this. And yet, here we are, Cowboys. Fans are furious, and rightfully so. The biggest mistake was not the trade itself. It was the way it was handled from start to finish. When you compare this to other infamous Dallas front office decisions, it feels like déjà vu. Some are even putting this in the same category as the Luka Doncic trade in the NBA, when Dallas basically handed away a superstar before he even stepped onto the court. Now, the Cowboys just gave away their defensive superstar, Micah Parsons, and the timing makes it sting even worse. And you cannot ignore the role ego played in this. Jerry Jones still believes he is the smartest man in every room, and his unwillingness to step aside continues to drag this team into chaos. You can blame Jerry, you can blame Steven, you can even throw in Mike McCarthy or Micah's agent. But at the end of the day, this came down to a Jones decision. Jerry admitted it himself. They made the call, and they were determined to see it through. But instead of making a calculated football decision, they let emotions dictate the outcome. They felt slighted. They felt like the Parsons camp wasn't playing fair, and they let it get personal. That is never how you manage a franchise. Cornerstone. Think about it. The Cowboys spent all offseason ignoring the glaring holes in their run defense. They had over $30 million in cap space sitting there, and they did not use it to shore up one of their biggest weaknesses. They could have signed free agents. They could have structured smarter contracts, but they did nothing. Then suddenly, a week before week 1, they panic and act like Micah's departure was the magic solution to all their problems. How does that make sense? It doesn't. It's just a desperate attempt to justify a move that was rooted in frustration and pride. More than strategy, fans are left asking why now? Why not months ago when teams were actually looking to spend and build for the season? Back in March and April, the Cowboys could have had multiple biters. They could have created a real market for Micah Parsons, maximized his value, and maybe even secured the kind of draft haul that changes the trajectory of team. Instead, they waited until the very last minute when most teams had already set their rosters, budgets, and strategies. The Falcons, for example, had already burned future picks to grab another pass rusher. That's one less suitor right there. By waiting this long, Dallas backed itself into a corner and came away with far less than what Parsons was truly worth. The fan base is split between anger and heartbreak. Some are simply tired of Jerry's antics, tired of the endless cycle of bad front office moves that keep this team locked in mediocrity. Others are just numb. Decades of watching this organization sabotage itself has left fans drained to the point where even a move this big doesn't shock them anymore. But whether you're angry, sad, or just exhausted, the common ground is that nobody feels good about where the Cowboys stand today. What's worse is the message it sends to the locker room. You're talking about trading away the heart of your defense, one of the top 3 edge rushers in the entire NFL. That's not just losing a player. That's ripping out a piece of the team's identity. The young guys look around and wonder if Micah can be shipped off like this. What does that mean for the rest of us? And while depth on the defensive line is fine, you've got players like Dante Fowler, Sam Williams, and even some promising rookies. None of them are Micah Parsons. Depth doesn't replace dominance. You don't win games with a bullpen rotation of defensive ends. You need a superstar anchor, and Dallas just let theirs go. It all circles back to Jerry's obsession with attention. The timing wasn't random. Just as the NFL season was about to kick off, just as buzz was heating up with a Netflix documentary about the Cowboys, Jerry wanted another headline. He wanted to be the center conversation, and he got exactly that. The problem is headlines don't win football games. Publicity doesn't get you sacks, stops, or playoff wins. It gets you talked about, sure, but fans are tired of being the league soap opera instead of its champion. And when you look closer at the supposed logic behind this trade, it falls apart. Even further, if the plan was to rebuild the run defense, how does this move accomplish that? You have 6 defensive tackles on the roster right now, and half of them aren't consistent starters. You brought in Elijah Mitchell, who hasn't been impactful for 2 years, and now you're going to rely on him to fix one of the biggest weaknesses on the team. That's not a plan. That's wishful thinking. And wishful thinking doesn't survive in the NFL. The Cowboys could have had it all lined up differently. They could have pulled off a March trade, stacked draft picks, spent their cap space wisely, and positioned themselves for both short-term competitiveness and long-term growth. Instead, they're in limbo, not fully rebuilding, not fully contending, just stuck in that dreaded middle ground where you're not bad enough to reset and not good enough to seriously compete. That's the worst place to be. And right now, that's exactly where Dallas is sitting. Even Jerry's demeanor at the press conference gave it away. He looked more betrayed than strategic, more like someone nursing hurt feelings than making a calculated football move. He could barely get Micah's name right, which is almost symbolic of how out of touch the leadership has become. The Parsons camp felt disrespected. The Jones camp felt betrayed. And instead of coming back to the table like professionals, they let the relationship crumble. And what do fans get? A gaping hole in the defense, a cloud of uncertainty over the season, and another reason to question the direction of this franchise. All right, Cowboys Nation, if the first part was about the disaster of how this whole Micah Parsons trade unfolded, then now it is time to dive even deeper into what this really means moving forward, not only for this season, but for the entire identity of the Dallas Cowboys. Because this isn't just a transaction. This isn't just moving on from a star. This is about how an organization runs, how it reacts under pressure, and whether it is serious about winning championships, or if it is content with staying in that middle ground of relevance without glory. Let's start with the timing again, because the more you think about it, the worse it looks. It's almost like the Cowboys were trying to punish Parsons by waiting this long, as if to send a message that they hold the cards. But what cards really when you pull the trigger on a trade 1 week before the season starts? You don't hold anything. Other teams already know you are desperate. They already know you have no leverage, and they're going to take advantage of that. It is negotiating 101, and the Cowboys failed the test. Compare that to the franchises that always seem to get it right, like the Ravens or the 49ers. When they trade, they do it on their terms. When the market is hot, when they can squeeze maximum value out of the situation. Dallas waited until every door had already closed and then wondered why the return didn't look impressive. And let's be honest about the so-called return. Draft picks are nice, sure, but they are lottery tickets. You don't just replace Micah Parsons with a mid-first round pick. You don't just find his production, his energy, his versatility with a roll of the dice. The Cowboys front office can spin it however they want, but the truth is they gave away certainty for uncertainty. They traded a proven superstar for a future that might not even come close to matching what they lost. And for a team that always claims to be in win-now mode, that is the exact opposite of what you were supposed to do. The locker room is going to feel this. Players aren't dumb. They know when management is fumbling. They see when one of their brothers, one of their leaders gets shipped off because of egos and pride instead of football logic. How do you sell that to the veterans who signed up for a Super Bowl push? How do you tell Dak Prescott that the window is open when you just slammed it shut by trading away the best defensive weapon in the league? How do you look at guys like CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, or even newcomers and convince them that this team is serious about contending? Moves like this don't build trust, they break it. And once trust starts to crack in a locker room, it spreads fast. And the fan base, the anger is already spilling out everywhere. Social media is a firestorm. Podcasts and shows are tearing into Jerry and Stephen Jones, and even the most loyal fans are saying the same thing. Enough is enough. They're tired of being the butt of the joke. Tired of being the team that is more about drama than dominance. Every year, it's something new. Either it's a contract debacle, a bizarre draft decision, or an unnecessary circus created by Jerry's need for headlines. Fans are loyal, yes, but loyalty has limits, and the frustration is boiling over. The sad part is, Jerry probably doesn't even see it as a problem. He thrives on attention. In his mind, the fact that the Cowboys are dominating conversation means success, but conversation isn't trophies. And Cowboys fans are starving for trophies. The scary thing is how this sets the tone for the season. Without Parsons, this defense looks completely different. Dan Quinn built so much of his scheme around Micah's versatility, moving him around the line, dropping him back, unleashing him in blitz packages. He was the chess piece that made everything else fit. Without him, you're asking players to step into roles they aren't ready for. Dante Fowler is a nice rotational piece. Sam Williams has potential, but neither of them commands double teams. The way Parsons did, without that attention on the edge, offenses can spread the field, target weak spots, and dictate the pace. Suddenly, the secondary, which looked elite, is going to be under more pressure. Trayvon Diggs and Darren Bland can only hold up so long if quarterbacks have extra time to throw. And then there is the run defense. Everyone keeps talking about fixing it, but how exactly? Trading Micah Parsons doesn't magically make you better against the run. It just removes your best overall defender. The Cowboys could have used their $30 million in cap space months ago to sign reinforcements in the trenches. They could have targeted proven run stuffers to plug that glaring hole, but they didn't. They sat on their hands and then acted like sending Parsons away for Elijah Mitchell and draft picks was some kind of grand solution. That isn't a solution. That's mismanagement dressed up as strategy. Now imagine Week 1 against the Giants. Saquon Barkley is healthy, motivated, and lining up against a Cowboys front that no longer has its tone setter. Can you honestly say you feel confident about that matchup? And that's just Week 1. Look further down the schedule. The Eagles with their powerhouse offensive line. The 49ers with Christian McCaffrey. The Bills with Josh Allen extending plays. Without Parsons wreaking havoc, those games tilt heavily against Dallas. And once the losses start stacking, the noise only gets louder. Media piles on. Fans grow restless, and the locker room begins to fracture. And let's not ignore the bigger picture. This move wasn't just about Parsons. It was about what kind of organization the Cowboys want to be. Championship franchises value continuity. They value culture. They value their stars. The Chiefs take care of Mahomes and Kelsey. The Rams took care of Aaron Donald. The Steelers always made sure their leaders were respected. Dallas turns it into a soap opera, drags negotiations out for months, lets emotions take control, and then blows it all up at the worst possible time. That isn't how you win titles. That's how you spin your wheels for decades. Even the players on other teams are noticing. When stars around the league see how Dallas treated Parsons, what does that do for future free agency? What does that say to the next generation of superstars who might one day wear the star? If the message is that ego comes first and loyalty comes last, then why would anyone want to commit long-term? The Cowboys love to market themselves as America's team, but America's team should also be a destination for greatness, not a cautionary tale of what happens when pride outruns vision. And while Jerry is smiling for the cameras, thinking he's pulled off another headline graphic move, the real story is what is happening on the field. Coaches are scrambling to rewrite schemes. Players are adjusting to new roles they weren't preparing for. And fans are staring down the barrel of a season that suddenly looks a whole lot darker. If the Cowboys were a true contender 2 months ago, that picture has changed drastically. The margin for error in the NFL is razor thin, and Dallas just erased one of its biggest advantages. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers have begun to echo throughout the halls of AT&T Stadium, sending chills through the Dallas Cowboys fan base as the tension between head coach Brian Schottenheimer and tight end Jay Ferguson reaches what insiders describe as an unprecedented boiling point. Sources close to the organization suggest that the disagreement escalated during recent practice sessions where Ferguson reportedly failed to execute specific plays as directed by Schottenheimer, resulting in a public outburst that left teammates stunned and fans scrambling to understand the depth of the conflict. While the Cowboys have struggled in recent games, insiders claim that the friction is less about wins and losses and more about personality, clashes and philosophical differences regarding how the offense should operate. Conversations around league circles indicate that Schottenheimer, known for his fiery temperament and exacting standards, finally reached a breaking point after repeated perceived lapses in discipline and focus from Ferguson, who has nonetheless been praised for his athleticism and versatility. Rumors swirl that the heated comment "doesn't play with me anymore" was not intended for public consumption, but was overheard by several team staff members, spreading like wildfire across locker rooms and sports media platforms. The dynamics of this relationship now appears so strained that speculation about Ferguson's role in upcoming games dominates chatter among analysts and casual fans alike. Insiders claim that while management has not officially intervened, the atmosphere in Dallas is thick with unease and uncertainty, leaving many to wonder if Schottenheimer's statement will result in benching, trade discussions, or a more profound cultural shift within the team. Conversations around social media echoed this sentiment, with fan forums dissecting every clip, interview, and social media post. Try to gauge whether this tension is a short-term flare-up or indicative of long-term discord within the Cowboys' ranks. Sources say that the fallout could have ripple effects on locker room morale, play-calling dynamics, and even how the team approaches future roster decisions. Experts hint that such a public confrontation between a coach and a promising player is rare, especially in an organization that prides itself on stability and professional conduct, intensifying the intrigue and speculation surrounding what happens next. The Cowboys fan base, known for its passionate engagement, has divided into factions, with some siding with Schottenheimer's demand for discipline, while others rally behind Ferguson's perceived struggle against an overbearing coaching approach, magnifying the drama in a way that extends far beyond the field. With practices, games, and media appearances continuing, Each day without resolution fuels further rumor, leaving the Dallas franchise suspended in a state of anxious anticipation with the potential consequences on team chemistry, season prospects, and national perception hanging in delicate balance. Those who claim to have insider knowledge suggest that the team hierarchy is quietly deliberating possible solutions, though public statements remain cautious, measured, and devoid of the raw emotion that has defined this dispute behind closed doors. Industry whispers indicate that the conflict between Schottenheimer and Ferguson may be emblematic of a broader cultural tension within Dallas, reflecting deeper issues related to coaching, philosophy, player autonomy, and communication practices in a high-stakes NFL environment. According to anonymous sources, this clash did not occur in isolation, but emerged gradually, fueled by multiple incidents where Ferguson's approach to routes, blocking assignments, and situational awareness clashed with Schottenheimer's meticulous game plans and uncompromising standards for precision and discipline. Analysts who have followed the Cowboys closely note that Schottenheimer, a figure known for both offensive acumen and volatility, has historically been willing to make difficult personnel decisions when he perceives a misalignment with his vision, suggesting that the intensity of his recent remarks might signal deeper strategic Industry chatter suggests that Ferguson, a player widely admired for his work ethic, has become a lightning rod for discussions about the evolving relationship between players and coaching staff in the modern NFL, raising questions about how emerging talents reconcile personal style with organizational expectations. According to those within the organization, the statement, "He doesn't play with me anymore," has ignited speculation not only about immediate game-time decisions, but also about the potential long-term ramifications for Ferguson's career trajectory, including whether he might be traded, benched, or subjected to an internal disciplinary review that could shape his standing within the league. Experts emphasize that such publicized discord is rare, highlighting the delicate balance coaches must maintain between asserting authority and fostering trust, particularly when the stakes involve high-profile players who are integral to team identity. Conversations around NFL social media channels amplify the intrigue, with fans and commentators dissecting body language, post-game interviews, and practice footage for clues that could indicate reconciliation or escalation, fueling a narrative that seems to grow more dramatic with each passing day. Those close to the situation hint at a complex web of personalities, expectations, and past grievances, making it increasingly challenging to predict whether the dispute will resolve quietly behind the scenes or erupt into a more disruptive chapter. In Cowboys history, the potential impact on locker room dynamics cannot be understated, with teammates reportedly caught in the crossfire of differing loyalties, strategic alignment, and personal empathy, adding another layer to an already combustible environment. Observers note that the media frenzy around this conflict has intensified pressure on all parties, with every statement, gesture, or omission scrutinized for hidden meaning, increasing the psychological stakes and forcing the organization to navigate a precarious balance between transparency, team cohesion, and reputation management. As the rumblings persist, the Cowboys situation remains a compelling case study in NFL culture, authority, and the tension between performance demands and interpersonal relationships in one of football's most scrutinized franchises, leaving fans and analysts alike eager for clarity amidst a swirl of speculation, rumor, and strategic uncertainty. The atmosphere surrounding Dallas has reportedly shifted from professional rigor to something closer to high-stakes melodrama, with insiders claiming that the fallout between Brian Schottenheimer and Jake Ferguson has infused every facet of the organization with tension and speculation. Sources within the Cowboys operations suggest that internal discussions now center on whether Ferguson can regain the trust of a coach who has publicly and vehemently questioned his commitment, effectiveness, and alignment with the team's offensive schemes. Observers note that the drama has transcended locker room whispers, influencing the tone of meetings, player interactions, and even the cadence of practice sessions, which are reportedly being conducted under a microscope-like scrutiny to prevent further flare-ups. Analysts who monitor coaching behavior in the NFL suggest that Schottenheimer's outburst is a tactical signal intended not only to assert authority, but also to send a warning to other players about accountability and the non-negotiable standards he expects, though such moves carry inherent risk of alienating talent and eroding cohesion. According to insiders, the comment, "He doesn't play with me anymore," was overheard in a tense, unguarded moment, rapidly traveling through team staff, agents, and media channels, amplifying speculation about potential benching, trade negotiations, or internal disciplinary actions. Sources also hint that this conflict may force front office leaders to weigh competing priorities, balancing the need to support a head coach with the imperative to protect emerging talent and maintain fan confidence, illustrating the intricate power dynamics at play in high-profile professional sports organizations. Social media engagement reflects the intensity of public fascination, with fan debates splitting along lines of loyalty, philosophy, and perceived fairness. creating a digital echo chamber that reinforces the drama and heightens pressure on all parties involved. Experts indicate that such a publicized discord can influence strategic decisions from play calling and formation choices to broader team culture initiatives, suggesting that Ferguson's role in the immediate season may be contingent, not merely on performance, but on relational repair and perception management. Those with knowledge of NFL operations suggest that while the situation may yet stabilize, the visibility and virality of the comments ensure that every practice, game, and public interaction is now interpreted through the lens of the coach-player conflict. Conversations inside the league hint at a delicate balancing act, with leadership striving to prevent the tension from undermining morale while navigating the optics of accountability. Leadership style and talent development in a media-saturated environment, leaving Dallas in a prolonged state of uncertainty as fans, media, and players await the next development in what has become one of the season's most talked-about storylines. Analysts emphasize that the ramifications extend far beyond a single player-coach dynamic, potentially influencing recruitment, retention, and the broader strategic identity of the Cowboys organization for seasons to come, ensuring that this dispute will be dissected for months, if not years, in both public forums and private evaluations. The implications of Schottenheimer's statement have reverberated far beyond the immediate confines of Dallas, with sources indicating that league executives, rival coaches, and player agents are all closely monitoring the situation to assess potential trends, opportunities, and risks arising from the apparent rupture between coach and tight end. Insiders suggest that Ferguson's response, demeanor, and subsequent interactions with teammates are being scrutinized for signals of resilience, defiance, or willingness to reconcile, with every interview, social media post, and practice snap dissected for signs that might indicate the trajectory of this conflict. Analysts point out that while Schottenheimer's outburst has created immediate shockwaves, the long-term consequences could influence contract negotiations, trade valuations, and market perceptions of both coach and player, as NFL organizations are increasingly sensitive to how internal discord can affect external brand image, fan loyalty, and commercial partnerships. Reports from within the team indicate that locker room morale has been noticeably affected, with some players expressing concern over potential disruptions to chemistry, focus, and overall team cohesion, suggesting that the fallout is not limited to the individuals directly involved but is cascading through the broader squad, influencing strategic discussions, leadership evaluations, and interpersonal dynamics across multiple levels of the organization. Industry insiders speculate that front office leadership is actively weighing options, from attempting mediated reconciliation to more drastic measures such as adjusting playing time, initiating trade conversations, or even contemplating organizational shifts in coaching responsibilities to prevent further escalation. Commentary on fan forums and social media platforms underscores the polarization of opinion, with some applauding Schottenheimer's demand for discipline and accountability, while others view Ferguson as a young talent unfairly caught in a high-pressure environment, reinforcing the perception that the dispute is emblematic of broader generational, philosophical, and cultural tensions within professional football. Conversations around NFL talk shows, podcasts, and online publications amplify the story, creating a feedback loop where speculation fuels media coverage, which in turn influences public perception and internal decision-making, making the situation increasingly complex and volatile. Experts emphasize that the management of such conflicts requires subtlety, strategic foresight, and sensitivity to both individual and collective interests, suggesting that any misstep could have ramifications for future team performance, talent development, and organizational reputation. Sources indicate that the Cowboys are navigating a delicate path, balancing transparency with discretion, authority with empathy, and immediate tactical needs with long-term cultural health, all under the intense scrutiny of fans, media, and league observers, ensuring that every decision will be amplified, interpreted, and debated with a level of intensity rarely seen outside of the most dramatic NFL storylines. As the saga continues, speculation grows regarding the impact on Dallas's offensive identity, locker room dynamics, and broader strategic direction, leaving the franchise and its supporters suspended in a state of heightened anticipation and ongoing rumor. Amid the swirling uncertainty, insiders suggest that the Schottenheimer-Ferguson conflict has sparked broader conversations about leadership, accountability, and the evolving expectations of player-coach relationships in the NFL, raising questions about how talent development, communication strategies, and disciplinary frameworks intersect with the high-pressure demands of professional sports. Reports indicate that Schottenheimer, despite his reputation for offensive expertise, is now navigating the dual challenge of maintaining authority while addressing internal dissent, a balance complicated by Ferguson's growing prominence as a versatile and promising tight end capable of influencing game outcomes in critical moments. Analysts highlight that the public nature of the dispute has amplified scrutiny, with every interaction between coach and player interpreted through a lens of conflict analysis, narrative construction, and speculative rumor, transforming what might have been a contained disagreement into a season-defining storyline with implications for team culture, fan engagement, and organizational reputation. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next.